Welcome to Brother Miller's Notes. Have you ever had those things that you really want, and then for whatever reason, the way you think you should get it doesn't happen? And eventually you get it down the road. Maybe it's after work, after patience, and you think, oh man, I got what I wanted, but the way I got it was not the way I really wanted to have happen. If to me, that's a little bit of the life of Joseph. In our previous chapters, we've had Joseph who has, the bright coat, seems to be favored son, and then gets sold into Egypt. He gets sold into slavery. He puts in Potiphar's house. Thinks he's doing a good job. What's his reward? He gets falsely accused. And then you have him going to jail. And what's his reward for helping some people out with interpreting their dreams? Stays in jail longer. When he finally gets out, I find that these chapters are going to give us an example of how a couple of people get everything they want in life and have a little bit different perspectives on how they dealt with it. And we're going to look at why. That's Genesis 42 through 50. So we'll first start off with Joseph. He's an example of one who experienced very difficult times. He sees the hand of God in his life. In essence, he got everything he wanted, but not in the way he would have wanted. He gets a title in Egypt, viceroy. He gets a new name with that. Let's see if I can even come close to it. Zapnath Paneah, meaning revealer of a secret, or preserver of a world or an age. Now that's pretty cool. He has everything he wants, power-wise, wealth-wise. He has a family. Things are going really well. We're going to find out he has a personal physician. Anytime you have a personal physician, you're doing pretty good. And then the famine hits and his brothers come. And just like he had in the dream, his brothers bow down before him. And I can just imagine him, and I think he refers to it, about, he notices they're bowing down. And I can just imagine those dreams come back to him. Man, everything I thought was going to happen in life is now happening. But just go to the other side for just a minute. There's a price that his brothers have been paying in guilt. So he's detained them a little bit, okay, in chapter 42. And Joseph's going to let him go. Joseph said unto them on the third day, this is verse 18, this do and live, for I fear God. If ye be true men, and I add in, you're not spies, let one of your brethren be bound in the house of your prison. Go ye, carry corn for the famine of your houses. But bring your eldest brother unto me. So shall your words be verified, and ye shall not die. And they did so. And then you start to see the guilt as they're like, we're on our way. Verse 21, and they said one another, we are very guilty concerning our brother, in that we saw the anguish of his soul when he besought us, and we would not hear. Therefore is this distress come upon us. That's telling us a lot more of the story than we probably already knew. He's in distress. He's anguished when he's in the pit, when he's sold, and we didn't listen to him. We ignored him. Well, they go back, and corn runs out, you may know, and they've got to bring their youngest brother, Benjamin, back with them. And so they do. And as they come back to get food, you probably know the story, they get food, and a little bit more money is added to their sacks. The sacks are full, little money added, and, well, so is a little piece of something extra into Benjamin's sack of corn. We'll come back to that. The 10 brothers, excluding Benjamin, had sold Joseph into slavery for 20 measures of silver. When they come to Egypt to buy grain, they're repaid with 20 measures of silver. The story's a bit complicated, but the point is clear. Joseph first accuses his brothers of being spies from Canaan. They, of course, deny it. They say, 10 of 12 sons of a man from the land of Canaan, one son having died, that's Joseph. And the other, the youngest, he's Benjamin, remained home with his father. Supposedly to test whether they're telling the truth, Joseph keeps Simeon, sends the others back to Canaan to return with Benjamin. To confuse him further, Joseph secretly has the silver they've put in their grain placed back in the sacks of the brother. Later, they return with their youngest brother Benjamin to buy more food. Joseph releases Simeon and sends off all 11 brothers, but again, he secretly has their silver placed back in their sacks, this time of the 11 brothers. Thus Joseph has returned a total of 20 measures of silver, the same price for which the brothers sold Joseph into slavery. The brothers just received 20 measures of silver for a second time, but this time under very different circumstances. They learn what it means to feel helpless, to be victims of injustice. As they deceived, they are deceived. Well, as their caravan is searched, the cup of the viceroy is found in Benjamin's stuff. Chapter 44, verses 12, and he searched, and began at the eldest, and left at the youngest. And the cup was found in Benjamin's sack. And they rent their clothes, and laded every man his ass, and returned to the city. Now, I pause here. The punishment is going to be, Benjamin has to return, and he's going to be, probably at best, in jail. So verse 14, I love Judah and his leadership role now, the Judah that he's become. Because here he's going to give an impassioned plea, and he's going to stand up for his brethren in a really unique leadership role. Verse 14, and Judah and his brethren came to Joseph's house. Okay, Judah's a leader, for he was yet there, and they fell before him on the ground. And Joseph said unto them, what deed is this that ye have done? Wot ye not that such a man as I can certainly divine? And I pause. Kind of the Egyptian tradition is you have this little goblet that you pour some liquid in, and you can divine what's going on. Okay, that's his diviner's cup. That's what he's got. But also, don't you know that I can do that without the cup? Of course I have that skill. And verse 16. And Judah said, what shall we say unto my Lord? What shall we speak? Or how shall we clear ourselves? God hath found out the iniquity of thy servants. Behold, we are my Lord's servants, both we and he that is also with whom the cup is found. Now Judah's plea in verses 14 and 34 is beautiful. And well done. He's articulate, and he is sincere. The Judah of years ago is more in it for himself. And this Judah is in it for his brothers and his dad. And I share this quote with you. Not many prose passages in any literature can compare to the beauty and poignancy with this writing. Here are the fundamental emotions of human life, expressed with a simplicity so immediate and spontaneous that they find their echo in the hearts of every generation. Judah is the spokesman for the others. What he says is what they've all at least began to feel. They've begun to understand that one of the worst of human sins is hard-heartedness. Joseph's brothers have begun to learn what the real values of life are. See them reflected in the matchless plea which Judah makes to Joseph. He does not know who Joseph is, but he understands the emotions which every decent man responds to. The sorrow of a man's heart over a lost son, the wistfulness of old age, the memory of a dead mother, the protective love for a youngest child. And in the name of these, Judah pleads because he knows instinctively that such a plea ought not to be in vain. And his feelings is not a matter of words only, but he's ready to act in spirit exactly opposite from the spirit he had earlier followed. Once he had helped to sell a brother into slavery. Now, verse 33, he's asking to be put in prison himself in order that another may go free. A chance for searching his own heart is here. What has life done to us? What do we do to respond to? Has life made us callous so that we're ashamed, lest somebody would call us sentimental? Or have we learned, like Judah, that even if it's by the hard way, as was the case with him, that a man can begin to live with himself only when he knows that the greatest affections are beyond all other things supremely worth preserving. The man who is hard to others turns his own soul into stone, and the whole ground of his life's best possibility for happiness grows barren. In 1 Peter chapter 1, verse 8, there are two beautiful words, be pitiful. They make a summary of what Judah's learned and what he's tried to say. And after he says it, it's melted Joseph's heart. Chapter 45, verse 1. Then Joseph could not refrain himself before them all that stood by him, and he cried, cause every man to go out from me. And there he stood with him, no man with him, while Joseph made himself known unto his brethren. And he wept aloud, and the Egyptians and the house of Pharaoh heard. Now, I don't know how far away Pharaoh's house is, but they're hearing him. And Joseph said unto his brother, I am Joseph. Doth my father yet live? And his brethren could not answer him, for they were troubled at his presence. And Joseph said unto his brethren, come near me, I pray. And they came near, and he said, I am Joseph. You didn't get it right the first time. Let me tell you again, I'm Joseph, your brother. Now let me drive it home, because I know ye sold into Egypt. And they have a great reunion. Joseph understands the why that bad things happen to him. And he's gotten everything in his life, but not the way he wanted to. But he also understands the why of God's timing, which I think comes with a lot of prayer and contemplation, reflection, and righteous living. And then he gets this theme in Genesis 45. Let me tell you the why. Okay? First, God sent me before you. I can see the hand of God in my life. And if you're going to get over difficult things, you have to see the hand of God in your life. And then he said, just so you know, verse 7, in case you didn't see it, God has sent me before you. God is the one who's done all this. And he's helped us to come to this place right now. And then he says it again in verse 8. So it was not you that sent me hither, but God, a third time. And then he says there's a purpose in God's plan. And I found mine. It was, back to verse 5, to preserve life. And then he repeats it again, verse 7, to preserve, this time, you a posterity in the earth. And then he repeats it again. Hey, another reason why God did this, a reason, is I can be ruler throughout all the land of Egypt. And even that has a why. Why does God want me in this position? Well, at the very verse 11, I will nourish thee. God's helped set me up as a ruler to bless all these people, and you included, because there's yet 5 years of famine. I have to think, Joseph got over how he got to where he was. The really hard times of being slave, being sold into slavery, being away from home, giving up all hope of returning home. Now, maybe the hope is still there, but as a slave, it's not. Doing a good job and then being falsely accused of something indecent. And as a result of you're doing good, you're doing your best, you're having the Spirit with you, you're thrown into prison. And I think, what does Joseph understand about his trials? He gets the whys. He understands that God's hand is in his life. And if you're going to understand the difficulties of your trials, you have to see God's hand in your life today and be observant for it. And it would be really cool if you can have a discussion around the table, dinner, or if you're in church. If Joseph was here, knowing what he knows about trials, what advice would he give you about what you're experiencing today? Now, that's a very personalized thought question that makes a person reflect on what's happening today and apply the Joseph persona on their situation today. And it would be really cool to say, okay, what's the advice that prophets are giving right now for us today in our difficult times? Because they are giving the news of today from God today. And it may be good if you're in a class or maybe family evening, just everybody get out your devices and search what the modern day prophets have been saying in the church's website, in the general conference, which will be coming up here shortly. Well, going to Genesis 46:2, Israel is going to go to Egypt, and he's worried about it because going back to Egypt, hey, am I going to get back? And Jacob spake unto Israel in the visions of the night, and said, Jacob, Jacob. And he said, Here am I. Boy, that sounds so familiar. And he said, I am God, the God of thy father. Fear not to go down unto Egypt, for I will there make of thee a great nation. And I love what he says in verse 4. I myself will go down with you to Egypt, and I'll also bring you up again. It's fascinating to see a second person in our story who's gotten everything that they want in life, but has been through a very different path than maybe they would have imagined. Israel's had a hard time, but he's ended up with lots of kids, he's ended up with lots of wealth, ended up with great family relationships. And when he gets to Pharaoh, it's fun for me just to kind of imagine this in my mind, being in Egypt and the grandness of Egypt. And Joseph takes some of his brethren, 5 men, presents them to Pharaoh, and Dad's there along with them. And Pharaoh's like, oh, you're Joseph's kin, you're Joseph's people. I'm going to give you an awesome place. You can see in the map, Goshen is in the green part, the crescent of the Nile, where everything grows so well. And Pharaoh says, the land of Egypt is before thee. The best of the land of make my father and brethren, thy father and brethren to dwell. In the land of Goshen, let them dwell. And if thou knowest any men of activity among them, let them make them rulers over my cattle. Hey, you're in charge of all the cattle. And now my focus for me for the next few minutes is on Joseph. What does Joseph do with his life history as he meets probably the greatest ruler in the world at this point? Joseph brought his father Jacob, set him before Pharaoh, and Jacob blessed Pharaoh. Just a little bit of his life in review. He's had some challenges. Think about, he wants the birthright, his mom wants the birthright, but in getting it, there's a little bit of deception with his brother in getting that blessing over Esau. And then, but he gets it. He gets the birthright. He gets his marriage in life with his beloved Rachel. He gets the promised children, and he gets lots of them. He gets wealth. But I think I already started adding the buts. In his life, he gets what he wants, but it's not the way he would have wanted. And in Israel's life, you see remorse, lament, hanging on to things. There seems to be more pain at the end of his life than contentment. You could, if it's him, he could say, I got the Father's blessing, I married my favorite wife, girlfriend, had a crush on her for 7 years before I married her, promised children, promised wealth. But when he stands before Pharaoh, that's not what he mentions. His attitude about his life, I think, is revealed when he says this to Pharaoh in Genesis 47:9. Few and evil have been the days of the years of my life. hey, my life's been a lot shorter than my dad and my grandpa. So they're not going to be relatively as long as them. But I've had a lot of bad things happen. And that's what he chooses to share with Pharaoh. And there's a focus. And you think, so the struggles in Jacob's life that are prominent for him, and you see it when he deals with people. He has the struggle in the womb with Esau. And he struggles with Esau to get the Isaac's blessing. He uses it through a little bit of deception. And Esau is ticked. He's going to suffer the wrath of Egypt, and he's going to have lingering guilt on that. He's going to have a very long exile away from family because of it. He does get Rachel, but after having Leah imposed upon him, he has challenges with his new father-in-law, Laban, and there's some deception. His love of his life, Rachel, he loses early in childbirth. He's given a new name as he wrestles with a representative of God. His new name's Israel, one who prevails, but he comes away with a permanent wound. He gets his 12 sons, but there's downright hatred between them. Enough that they want to murder one of them, to sell one of them, to lie about him, about his demise. He spends 22 years continually grieving over his favorite son, who he believes is dead. And you see that. Hey, he's my son, my only son. And sometimes he's saying that as the sons come back reporting about the grain, and we had to leave our brother there. He's like, what? Take my son, my only son? Because the other one died. This is my only son. My other one's dead. In sum, I love the way Alder says it about Jacob's and the way he sees his life. Quote, this in sum, a story with a happy ending that withholds any simple feelings of happiness at the end. Sometimes we have times in our life of guilt and shame. And maybe there are times that we're just remembering things we could have done better. Maybe it's times that we remember, like Jacob, that we've made things right the best we could. He's made things right with Esau. He's made things right with Leah and Rachel. He's made things right with God, and he's let God prevail, and has a new name. But the question is, after all this, he still feels, the way I'm reading it, a sense of remorse, maybe a sense of guilt. How do you get over that? Very recently, Elder D. Todd Christofferson had this brilliant quote on his YouTube channel. He said this, quote, on occasion, as I'm out and about, I get the question, how do I leave behind feelings of guilt and shame even after repenting? It's a fair question. We know that regret and remorse, or even godly sorrow, lead us to repentance and to the joy of forgiveness. But how do we leave behind those lingering feelings of guilt that may persist? Elder Richard G. Scott, who served many years in the Quorum of the 12 Apostles, had an analogy, a kind of a parable on this subject. He said, suppose you were foolish enough to walk through a mud puddle and get mud on your shoes. What would you do? Well, you would repent in a sense. You'd scrape off the mud. You'd wipe the mud from the shoes clean. You might even polish them a bit. But you wouldn't put the mud in an envelope and carry it around with you as a reminder of penance or some kind of mistake. We need to leave the mud behind. Don't carry it with you. So my question is, how do you do that? How do we leave the mud behind, if you will? As I look for examples in the scriptures, one that occurs to me is Alma and his companions, the sons of Mosiah. They were guilty of serious offenses, but they repented. And I pause in the video. He goes through and talks a little bit more about that. And then back to where in his video, what did they do to leave the mud behind, if you will? There were two things. First, they, as the scripture said, went about zealously striving to repair all the injuries they had done. And we can do that. We may not always be able to completely remedy or reconcile the situation, but in the end, full restitution is in Christ and in His grace. What they did what they could. We can do what we can, and then we leave it into the hands of the Savior. The second things they did was then to immerse themselves in the Lord's work, in His cause, in His blessings of our Father's children. Losing oneself in God's service, in His cause, is what turned their guilt to joy, replaced anguish with joy. Their guilt to joy replaced guilt with joy. And that's something all of us can accomplish. I love what he says. Restitution through Christ. And being in God's service, losing yourself in His work, allows you to lose your guilt in God. I love what he said. And then you get this, hey, after 147 years of living in Egypt, Joseph is old. Hey, 17 years, he's 147 years old, he's about to die, and he wants three things from Joseph. And here they are. First, he wants, in Genesis 47, 29 to 30, deal in true kindness with me, and he says, bury me with my fathers in Egypt. Bury with my fathers, not in Egypt. And I think everybody's probably going, yeah, you got that. Genesis 48, verses 5 through 6. I want to give an inheritance to both of Joseph's sons. He's the birthright son. He deserves two parts. He's got two sons. It works out great. Ephraim and Manasseh. And then in chapter 48, verses 8 and 9, I want to give my sons a blessing. So he wants to start these sons with a blessing. Gives Joseph. I can picture that. But we're first going to start with Ephraim and Manasseh. Verse 15. And he blessed Joseph and said, God, before whom my fathers and Abraham did walk, the God which fed me all my life long unto this day, the angel which redeemed me from evil, bless the lads, and let my name be on them, and name my fathers, and I, Abraham and Isaac, and let them grow into a multitude in the midst of the earth. Let me pause there before I read verse 17. That really is incredibly beautiful. He is testifying, I know God walked with me. I know He fed me all day long. I recognize His hand. I've had God's influence, His divine influence, redeem me from all evil. And I want to give all my blessings away to my kids and my grandkids. Man, that's just beautiful. But the way he does it is not the way maybe it's normally done. Oldest would be on the right side. Youngest son would be on the left. You give them kind of blessings. And that's not the way Jacob wants to do it. He crosses his arms, and he knows he's doing it. But I just want to, before I come back to him crossing his arms and Joseph's reaction, let's read this really awesome note from the Interpreter's Bible. Quote, note the way in which Jacob describes what God has been to him. First, he recognizes in the light all the best he had seen in his father and in his father's father. Then, God was him the one whom by his own experience he had been enriched. He fed me all my life unto this day. The word fed means shepherded. And here, for the first time, we come upon the beautiful metaphor so characteristic of the Bible. God's protecting goodness had the intimate watchfulness of a shepherd for his flock. This figure of the true loving kindness of God is lifted up to supreme expression in Jesus' parallel of the shepherd going out to rescue his lost sheep. He will be following us, even when we're in our ignorance or in our willfulness, we wander away. If we listen, more even imperfectly, like Jacob, we hear the shepherd's voice, which will lead us from the barren ground of our foolish impulse to those fields of life where our souls can grow. Well, back to his reaction. Joseph says to his dad, I saw my dad, Dad, this is my firstborn. Put your right hand upon him. And his father refused and said, I know it, my son. I know it. And I pause and I wonder if this also isn't a reflection right here of, hey, God knows the blessings he's going to give. And for a blessing given from an inspired person, patriarch, a blessing, a dad, it's coming from the Lord. So back to the blessing in verse 19. He also shall be a great people. He shall also be great, but truly his younger brother shall be greater than he, and his seed shall become a multitude of nations. Well, Jacob gives blessings to all of his sons in chapter 49, and we're going to include Ephraim and Manasseh in this. These blessings are prophetic. And Moses will include details at the end of Deuteronomy that can also relate to us today. These blessings are often a basis of patriarchal blessings. The blessings that are included for these individuals and the heads of these tribes are blessings that they will, the tribe members, have a part of as a part of being in that tribe. Now, sometimes we look and think, all right, if you're a part of those tribes, what are those blessings? What do they mean? And how many of these tribes do we have in the church? I go back to an experience that Sister Wendy Nelson had a few years ago. She spoke within a 24-hour period in Moscow, Russia, a few years ago, before the war, where she met with 100 Russian sisters while her husband taught the priesthood leaders of the area. When she went to the pulpit to talk to the sisters, she said something she never anticipated. Quote, "I'd like to get to know you by lineage," she said. "Please stand as the name of your tribe of Israel, which declared in your patriarchal blessing is spoken," Sister Nielsen said. While the women knew each other well, they didn't know each other's lineage. She said everyone is thrilled of what they are witnessing, feeling, and being taught as each of the tribe members of Israel were announced. "We were being taught about the reality of the days in which we now live," Sister Nielsen said. In the small gathering of fewer than 100 women in Moscow, 11 of the 12 tribes of Israel were represented, all but the tribe of Levi. After the meetings, the Nelsons went to the airport and flew to Armenia, where Elder Nelson was set to create the first stake of Zion in the country the next day. The first people to greet them as they got off the plane were the Armenian mission president and his wife, who heard of the Moscow sisters' experience. The first thing she said to me was, "I've got Levi," Sister Nielsen said. The audience erupted with laughter. Well, we're going to relate these to us today and what we call our patriarchal blessings. President Gordon B. Hinckley has said, "I hope we are encouraging those who are mature enough to understand the importance of a patriarchal blessing to receive one. I count my patriarchal blessing as one of the great sacred things of my life. A patriarchal blessing is a unique and sacred and very personal and wonderful thing that may be given to every member of the church who lives worthy of it." There are lineages that are given in the patriarchal blessing. And there's also in these lineages a few blessings. What I want to do is just spend a minute on each of these tribes and briefly describe the symbolism of the blessings that are given in each patriarchal blessing. So I'll be reading out of my scriptures and then just giving a few comments on the symbolism of it, if I hope you don't mind. So I'm Genesis 49, 3 through 4. "Reuben, thou art my firstborn, my might, and the beginning of my strength, the excellence of dignity, and the excellency of power." There is a lot to be said about those in the tribe of Reuben, with their majesty, with their ability, their leadership capabilities. And you think about tradition-wise what the tribe of Reuben does. The historical features we have from Reuben, like Deborah. I mean, she's the one that unfurls the banner of in Israelite independence in the days of the judges. The tribes rally around her. There is greatness there, but you get a verse 4. You get a but. Unstable as water. Water symbolically is an agent of chaos. You have to contain it. Once you contain it, it's useful. And you get that same type of thing with Reuben's life. It's a warning, maybe to those who may be influenced by trends, fashions, by things of the world, by their neighbors. Hey, set bounds. Put something around you. Let the Spirit be one that molds you, or Christ's influence guide you, and you can have that self-control and be great. And then I add in verse 4, unstable as water, thou shalt not exhale, because thou once to thy father's bed, thou hast defiled thou it, and went to my couch. Hey, you've had some serious sin. And it's a warning here. Serious sin will hinder you, and you'll forfeit promised blessings. Rise up above it. I don't know that we get the idea from Genesis whether he repented or not. He's pretty passionate plea when for his brothers, hey, if you're going to kill Joseph, or instead of them going down, offer my two sons as sacrifice for him. I think sometimes he has really good intents. Maybe he says it the wrong way. But for the tribe of Reuben, there's greatness in them. And there's this gentle reminder, hey, you may need to make sure that you're not influenced by worldly things. Beware of the trap of sin. Okay, next come up the tribe of Simeon and Levi. And we're going to really be mostly famous focusing on Genesis. Okay, I won't add a lot of the Deuteronomy for these, but I will when we get to Deuteronomy. How's that? Levi and Simeon. Levi and Simeon are brethren, verse 5. Instruments of cruelty are in their habitations. You may recall that when their sister is raped and then taken hostage, they are very cruel, and they encourage the men of the city that, not the men that were part of it, there's he's younger, who rapes Dinah, and he wants to have her his wife, and it's like, hey, to make a kind of restitution, go get circumcised. And then it says, while they were yet sore, all the men, they came in and killed them all. They have a lot of wrath there. And now that's their challenge. But there is a part of this blessing that sees a lot of greatness in them. Okay? Verse 7, cursed be for their anger. It's not on anyone else. I mean, maybe it is a warning to all of us. If your anger and it's fierce, you don't have a lot of wins when you're angry, if any. Okay? Verse 7, hey, you did it wrath, you were angry, it was cruel. And then here's a part of your blessing. I will divide them in Jacob and scatter them in Israel. You're still going to be a part of a tribe, but I'm just going to disperse you a little bit. And that happens with Simeon for the most part. By the time you get in Joshua 15, 19, like the first few verses, Simeon is mentioned, and he only gets a few cities as an inheritance. Not a big land, because there's not a big people. And then it's like they're just kind of swallowed up. You don't hear any more about Simeon after that. Levi, on the other hand, is also divided and set up. But they're divided and set up because I think God sees so much of service in them. They're the ones that will be doing God's service among everyone. They will have the priesthood. And so I think of people who have these patriarchal blessings, maybe God's going to divide you up, and you're going to be a little bit like leaven in bread. Your influence is going to be great. You are going to be called to do God's work. And maybe it's going to be associated with priesthood work, and you're going to be in temple, or you're going to be doing missionary work as a tribe of Levi, serving as God would want to have you serve where he would. And I think there's a warning for them and all of us. Keep your anger in check. It will get the best of you. Okay, Judah, let's go to the next one in Genesis 49, 8 through 12. Judah, thou art whom thy brethren shall praise. And I pause right there. Already, Judah's taken the leadership role of the family. We got Joseph who's in charge, but before Joseph comes around, Judah is the de facto leader of these other children. And your brothers are going to praise you. It appears even in the interactions, Judah is well liked by his brothers. Thy hand shall be in the neck of thine enemies. You're going to have some power. Thy father's children shall bow down before thee. Judah, let's make a comparison, is as a lion, and you first get this comparison, king of the jungle, power, stealth. Everybody wants to be you, especially if your name's Simba, right? And it kind of gets you if you talk about Simba, man, you got Simba's little cuteness there. Judah is a lion's whelp. There's going to be a time where you're young and you're cute and you want to be like, yip, 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 like everybody else. And, verse 9, from the prey, my son, thou art gone up. You've been able to be dominant. Judah, you're going to have some powers. You're going to have some really powerful times. He, Judah, stooped down, crouched as a lion. I mean, that's the imagery of just going to pounce. And, now later on, as an old lion, who shall rouse him up? And in verse 10, the scepter shall not depart from Judah. You got David, Solomon, Rehoboam. You have all these kings that are going to be kings of the tribe of Judah, of that portion around Jerusalem. And that scepter is going to be there, even though you're going to have a history of power, but then also of a time when looks like you're going to be in power, but you're not going to have a lot of ability to do much, like an old lion who crouched down. But I love verse 10 for how it testifies of Christ. The scepter shall not be depart from Judah, nor a lawgiver from between his feet until Shiloh, if you look down the footnotes, until he whose right it is come. The kingship is going to rightly be a part of the tribe of Judah until you get another figure coming. That would be Jesus Christ. And unto him shall the gathering of people be. It's unto Christ everyone's really going to gather. And I love that emphasis. So patriarchal blessings, I just picture, boy, if you're from the tribe of Judah, you are going to have opportunities to be young and, like all of us, have maybe some difficulties, but you're going to have times of power in your life. You'll have times of power in speech, power in time to do things in God's church, in his kingdom. And you will make a difference. And you are called to be a gatherer. Because just as Christ, one of Judah's descendant, is the ultimate gatherer, you are called to gather people to him. And do it in a way where others can look up to you as a leader and as a person who's an influencer. How's that? An influencer. Okay, we get to Zebulon. Okay, chapter 49, verse 13. Zebulun shall dwell at the haven of the sea. And Moses adds in a little detail. I'm going to just add in that they're going to have the abundance of the sea, that they're going to be blessed with the blessings of the sea. They're going to have opportunities to work with people with trade. I don't know that it says specifically that you're going to, that they're going to be on the seashore, but they're going to have association with people of the sea. They'll have a haven of the sea. There'll be a haven. He should be a haven of the ships. And some people say, hey, you're going to be on the borderlines. I don't know historically that's true, but in a broader sense, they interact quite a bit with people who are traders. Descendants of Zebulun become rich. And maybe a part of this patriarchal blessing to be in later generations would be that you may become blessed with the riches of the world. You may have opportunities to influence people who come from a far land, who've had journeys. Will you use your money for good things, for wise things, to build up people, to build up Christ? Will you, as you meet people who have come from afar, bring them into the place of refuge, peace, into Christ? Great, great symbolism for Zebulon. Chapter 14, Issachar is a strong ass couching between two burdens. This guy has strength. His posterity is going to have strength. And kind of couching down, he's heavily laden. This person can be a workhorse wherever they are, at work or in the kingdom. They can get things done. And then there's maybe a little bit of a warning. Verse 15, and he saw that rest was good, and the land that it was pleasant, and bowed his shoulder to bear. And wait. Everything around me is really, really good. I really, really like resting. And bows his shoulder. I'm just trying to do that physically, just kind of like, oh, okay, I'm putting myself down into my comfy chair, and I'm going to stay there. That's maybe a warning. You have so much power, and stay with it. You have burdens that you can help bear, and you can help serve others. But don't become complacent in life. Don't give in to ease and prosperity, because in your service you have power, but in your prosperity you become a servant unto tribute. You serve money, you serve others, but not the way you want it. You're just becoming, well, their donkey. So, great blessing. Okay, next we have Dan. Dan starts off getting an incredible blessing. Verse 16, Dan shall judge his people as one of the tribes of Israel. Dan is set up. These people are wise. They're going to be in a position where they're able to know what the differences is between good, better, and best. They're going to be able to apply that knowledge and help other people out, include all the tribes of Israel. That's a great blessing. And I will add that Moses says one thing that says Dan is like a lion's whelp and shall leap from Bashan. Now, and I'm also including this in verse 17, Dan shall be a serpent by the way. There's an indication that the tribe of Dan is going to have power like a lion, that they're going to have leadership. People are going to look up to them. And just like along the way, the prey is there, he's going to leap and be able to get the prey. He's going to be able to get it right. But there's also a side note. He's going to also be like a serpent along the side of the path, an adder poisonous in the path, that biteth the horse's heels, so that rideth falleth backwards. I have waited for thy salvation, O Lord. Okay, you put that in context. People from Dan have this promise of being able to apply wisdom, and they have power, and they're going to be able to rescue their prey. They're going to be able to get what they want. They're going to be able to do it righteously. And both Moses and here in Deuteronomy and here, there's this God's waiting for you to do that. You're going to do that. Hey, and there are some interpretations about him biting poisonous serpents and how Dan fails to live up as a righteous judge consistently in the Old Testament. And there's some speculation on maybe what that means. The name Dan means to judge, but it's also been reinterpreted recently with different translations. It's also mean to defend. Dan is to be a defender of righteousness against the attacks of those who are more subtle, and they're going to have the ability to be able to make those defenses. Sometimes when people see the Dan is compared to a serpent, they immediately go, oh, that's bad. In the Old Testament, the serpent was not a symbol of evil. For Moses, when people start getting bit by snakes, fiery snakes, he raises up a serpent. It is a symbol in the Old Testament of Jesus Christ at the time of Moses. Hey, I'm lifting up the snake, which is smart, and you have to look to this symbol of Christ. Just like Dan, you're going to hold up Christ, and you're going to tell people, look to Christ to live. And if people will look to your example, to Christ, they'll live. Dan has great, powerful blessings, and I just think that verse 18 summarizes Dan today. I'm waiting for you to do that in your life. Okay, we're on to Gad in chapter 49, verse 19. I love part of what it says to Gad, and I think it applies so much to all of us, but especially the tribe of Gad. Verse 19, Gad, a troop. That just implies there can be some discipline. There can be, when you work together with people, you can do great things. Shall overcome him, but he shall overcome at the last. Gad, a troop shall overcome him, but he shall overcome at the last. Hey, you're going to have some trials. And maybe God's saying there are times in your life where you're going to be attacked by enemies. And you are strong. And maybe if people are organized, they're going to try and get you as a troop. But God, you're also a troop. You can be organized. You will overcome. That's the promise. When Satan and his adversaries attack you, you will be overcome. You can overcome them. And that's a great spiritual blessing. And maybe God's encouraging this tribe that you're going to have to realize that you will get attacks, but be patient in them. They will be overcome. And I think, hey, for all of us in our life, we get attacked spiritually, or we have physical impairments, diseases, and challenges. But in Christ, we overcome. A beautiful, beautiful message. Okay, Asher. Genesis 49:20 says, out of Asher, I pause right there. The name Asher means happy or fortunate. Hey, you're fortunate. You're going to be happy. And out of that happiness and being fortunate, his bread shall be fat. Okay, that doesn't sound good to me at all. But we continue. And his yield shall be royal dainties. Hey, these are going to be delicacies fit for a king. The imagery here is you're going to be happy and fortunate, and you're going to have a lot of great things happen to you. I love it. That may suggest that tribes of Asher could have material blessings and be safe and secure. That sounds a lot better than some of the other tribes, doesn't it? Maybe that's why they're happy and fortunate. And I should add, because I'm remembering in Deuteronomy 24, it says his foot will be dipped in oil, or hey, you're going to have a lot of abundance in life. And maybe it's that kind of, you're going to be blessed once again with riches and the challenges that come with prosperity. And Moses also says he's going to be blessed, quote, above other children. And almost implies he's going to be one of the most blessed tribes of Israel. So maybe there's that idea that look to the hand of the Lord in your life. And what are you going to do with the blessings God's given you? Okay, Naphtali. Verse 21, Naphtali is a hind let loose. So that's the imagery. You can see it in the picture. It is the idea that you're going to be let loose, and you're going to have a lot of place to roam, and you're going to have an abundance. Now, the tribe of Naphtali is given the area of the northern Galilee, and they get a lot of benefits from being around the Sea of Galilee and the irrigation and the water, and they've got a lot of space to roam and to spread out. There's also an imagery of swiftness and grace in movement. Just for me, as you watch a deer that's going, they can go really fast and cover a lot of ground, and they look like they're doing it effortlessly. So because of their swiftness, maybe they're going to be one who will be entrusted to share the good news, to be able to share communication with other people. They may be gifted to be able to be, hey, go out and help in the work of God as they're out and about, and they're so graceful about it. Now, the second part of verse 21, Naphtali, he giveth goodly words. Man, he has great speaking abilities. His words are positive, they're uplifting. They can share things in a way that build people up. When you edify people, you can bring them closer to God, build them up towards Christ. The good words, man, can be anything, but the really, really good words, the best words, are those that build people up, edify them, and bring them closer to God and others. I think that's what I see with Naphtali. All right, Benjamin. You gotta love the imagery here. I know I'm skipping one, but we'll come back to Joseph in just a sec. Benjamin shall be raven as a wolf. In the morning he shall devour the prey, and at night he shall divide the spoil. I do want to add one commentary from Moses at the end of Deuteronomy. And of Benjamin he said, this is chapter 33, verse 12 of Deuteronomy, the beloved of the Lord shall dwell in safety by him. Boy, he's a defender of the people around him, and a defender of the faith. There's a tenacity about the tribe of Benjamin. The beloved of the Lord shall dwell in safety by him, and the Lord shall cover him all day long, and he shall dwell between his shoulders. Man, that suggests Benjamin's going to prevail, physically and spiritually. You get both the King Saul and the Apostle Paul were the tribe of Benjamin. And you get, and I'll just go Paul as an example of a member of the tribe of Benjamin. Man, isn't he a defender? Maybe not of the warlike, but he's a defender of the faith. He is able to preach Christ and let people know this is the way it is. And he's quoted forever. That seems to be a gift of Benjamin, to be able to defend of others, to keep them safe, and that the Lord can be with them. Man, what an awesome tribe to be a part of. You're going to be out defending people. People can count on you that they'll be safe. And you're going to be able to have the Lord with you right between the shoulders as you're running swiftly around. All right, and next we get to Joseph, Ephraim, and Manasseh. So I'm going to go back a few verses to Genesis 49, verses 22. Joseph is a fruitful bough by a well, whose branches run over the wall. And so, okay, you're fruitful, and there's a wall there, and this has kind of got some great interpretation because of the Book of Mormon. It talks about, hey, here's one of the ways it's going to do that. It's going to be so fruitful, it's going to spread its fruit all over the world. And so you get the well that is in the area of Jerusalem, and there's walls all around it. You can picture that as the water. And what's going to go over the water? Well, there's going to be a branch. And as the Nephites read this, they say, oh, we are a part of this prophecy. We're part of this tribe because it was prophesied that we would also go over that, we'd be from that well and go over the big wall. 2 Nephi 3, wherefore Joseph truly saw our day, and he obtained a promise of the Lord, that out of the fruit of his loins the Lord would raise up a righteous branch unto the house of Israel, not the Messiah, but a branch which was to be broken off. Nevertheless, to remember it in the covenants of the Lord, that the Messiah should be made manifest unto them in the latter days, in the spirit of power, unto the bringing of them out of darkness unto light, yea, out of hidden darkness, and out of captivity unto freedom. President Russell M. Nelson has commented, the Book of Mormon reveals what Joseph, the son of Jacob, who was once sold into Egypt, foresaw the prophet Joseph Smith and his day, and noted there would be many similarities in their lives. Centuries later, the prophet Joseph stated, I feel like Joseph in Egypt. Come back to the quote. The Book of Mormon reveals that the inheritance of Joseph, the son of Israel, was not forgotten when the land was distributed to the tribes of Israel, as promised in the Abrahamic covenant. Joseph's inheritance was to be the land of choice above all others. It was choice not because of beauty or wealth or natural resources, but choice because it was chosen to be the repository of sacred writings on the golden plates from which the Book of Mormon would one day come. It was choice because it would eventually host the world headquarters for the restored Church of Jesus Christ in the latter days. And it was choice because it is a land of liberty for those who worship the Lord and keep his commandments. Now, I just go a couple more things with Joseph. In the verse 24, the archers of, or 23, the archers have sorely grieved and shot at him and hated him. There's going to be some hatred towards him. But his bow abode in strength, and the arms of his hands were made strong by the hands of the Almighty God. From thence is the shepherd, the stone of Israel. And I also love a couple more things. Verse 25, you're going to get the blessings, Ephraim and Manasseh, the blessings from heaven above. You could say that's the blessings of the restoration of the church. That's the restorations of the Book of Mormon. Okay, the blessings of the deep below, the blessings of the breast and the womb. You're going to be blessed in everything. And verse 26, the blessings of my fathers have prevailed above the blessings of my progenitors unto the utmost bound of the everlasting hills, which has often been interpreted as those everlasting hills as being a part of the hills of the mountains of America. And they shall be on the head of the head of Joseph, and on the crown of the head of him that was separate from his brethren. And Moses adds that Ephraim and Manasseh are going to be like bulls, like oxen. One's a little more tame, one's a little more wild, and they're both going to have an effort, and they're going to push the rest of Israel together. The push could better be translated at times to be gather. They are going to be instruments in the gathering of Israel, the rest of the tribes, in the last days. Now, all these are just like a little bit of a glimpse of things that are a part of the tribes of Israel. The first presidency has talked about the importance of all of us receiving our patriarchal blessing. And when we get a lineage, knowing our lineage from these tribes, that we are partakers of those same blessings from those blessings given in Genesis and Deuteronomy. The first presidency has said, patriarchal blessings contemplate an inspired declaration of the lineage of the recipient and, when so moved upon by the Spirit, an inspired and prophetic statement of the life mission of the recipient, together with such blessings, cautions, and admonitions as the patriarch may be prompted to give for the accomplishment of such life's missions. It is always made clear that the realization of all promised blessings is conditional upon the faithfulness to the gospel of our Lord, whose servant the patriarch is. And in 2020, this wonderful article came out about patriarchal blessings. I just want to share a paragraph or two. Sister Lottie Ruth said, quote, I have learned to turn to my patriarchal blessing whenever I feel sad or lonely. My blessing helps me to see my potential and the specific plan God has for me. It comforts me and helps me see beyond my earthly perspective. It reminds me of my gifts and the blessings I will receive if I live worthy. It also reminds me to remember and feel at peace that God will provide answers and open doors for me in exactly the right moment when I need it most. Patriarchal blessings help us prepare to return to live with our Heavenly Father. I know patriarchal blessings come from God and can help us turn our weakness into strengths. These are not messages from fortune tellers. These blessings tell us what we need to hear. They are like a liahona for each of us. When we put God first and have faith in Him, He'll lead us through our own wilderness. President Thomas S. Monson taught about how the liahona is a lot like a patriarchal blessing. And it's a personal liahona in our life. He said this, the same Lord who provided the liahona to Lehi provides for you and for me a rare and valuable gift to give direction to our lives, to mark the hazards to our safety, and to chart the way, even safe passage, not to a promised land, but to our heavenly home. Every worthy member of the church is entitled to receive such a precise and priceless personal treasure. The gift to which I refer to is known as patriarchal blessing. A patriarchal blessing is a revelation to the recipient, even while down in the middle of the road, to protect, inspire, and motivate activity in righteousness. A patriarchal blessing literally contains chapters from your book of eternal possibilities. I say eternal, for just as life is eternal, so is a patriarchal blessing. What may not come to fulfillment in this life may occur in the next. We do not govern God's timetable. Your patriarchal blessing is yours and yours alone. It may be brief or lengthy, simple or profound. Length and language do not a patriarchal blessing make. It is the spirit that conveys the true meaning. Your blessing is not to be folded neatly and tucked away. It's not to be framed or published. Rather, it's to be read. It's to be loved. It's to be followed. Your patriarchal blessing will see you through the darkest night. It will guide you through life's dangers. Your patriarchal blessing is to you a personal liahona to chart your course and guide your way. Your patriarchal blessing is your passport to peace in this life. It is liahona of light to guide you unerringly to your heavenly home. And sometimes I get questions from teenagers like, how old should we be before we receive our patriarchal blessing? Can a patriarchal blessing guide us and bless us? How can it do that? How can we prepare to receive one? How do we arrange to get one? And does every patriarchal blessing mention every important event of our life? Let me just give you 3 or 4 quotes as I wrap up to answer some of these questions. Elder David A. Bednar said, "One of the primary reasons we receive a patriarchal blessing is to help us more fully understand who we are as the posterity of Abraham and recognize the responsibility that rests upon us." Maybe a part of that blessing should always include the responsibility. Not that we're better than someone else, but that we are given added blessings to help others come closer to Christ. And this was an article that we have on the church's website. Some things that you may consider when it comes to your patriarchal blessing. If you don't have a patriarchal blessing yet, feel like you're ready for one, talk to your parents, your bishop, or branch president. If you feel you're ready, let's start the process. Talk to mom and dad and your priesthood leader. Patriarchal blessings should not be shared. They're sacred. But with anybody but close family members, they should not be read in church meetings or other public meetings. Keep a copy of the original in a safe place so you won't lose it, and others won't read it. Consider making a separate copy of 2 for your frequent study. You may want a copy in a secure place near your scriptures for easy access as you study. If you make an electronic copy of your blessing, it's probably best to store it where others will not be able to see it, and password protect the file if it's on your computer drive. All patriarchal blessings are stored at church headquarters, so if you ever you lose your copy, you can request another one there's the URL, churches, PB, short for Patriarchal Blessings, churchofjesuschrist.org/PB request, short for Patriarchal Blessing Request. And you'll need a church account to do that. And some people don't have a patriarchal blessing, and I mentioned this last one because sometimes we may not have a blessing, and we don't have our patriarchal blessing, and we want a blessing. And is there other blessings? Of course there is. A dad's blessing. And what if he's inactive? President Dallin H. Oaks, he gave this great counsel about father's blessings. Persons desiring guidance in an important decision can receive a priesthood blessing. Persons who need extra spiritual power to overcome a personal challenge can receive a blessing. Expectant mothers can be blessed before they give birth. Many LDS families remember a sacred occasion of a worthy father gave a priesthood blessing to a son or daughter who was about to be married. Priesthood blessings are often requested from father before children leave from home or for other purposes, such as school, service in the military, or a long trip. Newly called missionaries often request a father's blessing before they depart. What is the significance of a priesthood blessing? A priesthood blessing is a conferral of power over spiritual things in helping us overcome obstacles on the path to eternal life. Do not be hesitant to ask for a priesthood blessing when you are in need of spiritual power. And maybe if you're like President Nelson was growing up and dad might not be a little worthy, you could set the example and ask and be an instrument in the way to help bring dad back into the church and be able to give you a priesthood blessing. Okay, and I got to add a couple more things because I just love it. Joseph, sold in Egypt, saw our day. He saw Joseph Smith. Now, there is an extensive and long Joseph Smith translation that's contained at the end of the scriptures, Joseph Smith scripture section in the Pearl of Great Price in Genesis 50, and it's like verses 24 to 38. I'm not going to read the whole thing because I feel like I've already gone an hour, but I love what he does here. He's like, let me just tell you some highlights here. You're part of the God, my God of Jacob. I've got a promise, okay, of the Lord in the middle of verse 24, that a prophet, not the Messiah, but there's going to be a prophet that's going to deliver people out of Egypt in the days of my bondage. Hey, they are going to do it, a Moses. And then when the Messiah comes, verse 25, he'll have power manifested in him in the latter days, in the spirit of power, bring them out of darkness unto light, out of hidden darkness, out of captivity unto freedom. And a seer shall my God raise up, a choice seer. He'll be the fruit of my loins. He's going to have knowledge, verse 26, of covenants, and bring many to that knowledge that have been made to the Father. And I'm going to make him, verse 29, great in the house of the Lord. He's going to do a great work. I'll raise him up out of one of your descendants, and I'll give him power to bring forth the word unto the seed of my loins. And not only bringing forth of my word, verse 30, saith the Lord, but the convincing them of my word, which has gone forth among them in the latter days. Hey, the word's already gone forth among them in the latter days of the Bible. He's going to have convincing power of the Book of Mormon to bring forth Joseph's words, and they're going to be a testament that they both are true. And my loins are going to write the fruit of Judah. You know this. And the fruits of my loins are going to write, and they're going to grow together. And that's the Bible, the Book of Mormon, unto the confounding of false doctrines, to the laying down of contentions, establishing peace among the fruit of my loins, and bring them to knowledge of the fathers in the latter days, and also the covenants of the truth. And out of their weakness, they're going to be made strong. And his name's going to be Joseph, just like the name of his dad. Okay? At the very end of Genesis, Joseph has the opportunity to bury his father. And he goes up and asks Pharaoh, and he does it kind of through an intermediary. And we know I have access to him, but it's probably a time of mourning is the best guess that we have historically. And time of mourning, there's respect. Hey, just send this person to Pharaoh. Can I go with my people? And all their little ones, we're all going to go up. But by the way, he adds in, and we will return. Just so you know, we will return. And they get permission. And they go to, okay, I clicked on the wrong link. You've seen that a couple times today. Let me get back and pause this. According to the biblical tradition, Joseph, the one who sold into Egypt, make sure we got the context right, is buried in Shechem. His bones were carried out of Egypt by the Israelites. They were interred in a plot of land in Shechem that Jacob had previously purchased. This site traditionally is located in the modern-day city of Nablus in the West Bank, and this is a picture of that traditional site. And if you went there today, you could go in and see what traditionally is his tomb. Been to Israel a few times. I've not been able to go here just because of some unrest. But one day I hope to be here and to go. And if I say anything to the tomb of this great patriarchs, I would say thank you. Thank you for your example. And thank you for being an example of, hey, making sure sometimes things go right in life, but it doesn't happen the right way. But you can look to God, serve God, and let the past be in the past. Focus on the present, because Christ will take care of all of our tomorrows. Thanks for spending some time with me as we study Genesis 42 through 50. Hope you have a great day, and you can tell the link above is to a video I did 4 years ago. It has about 50-75% different content if you're interested, and keep smiling.